everyone. Today I have with me writer extraordinaire Karen M. Bryson. Thank you for being with us today, Karen.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, I had to tell, when I started reading, I found you on LinkedIn and I saw everything that you did, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to her. And then I picked up the first book in your club series, Behind Blue Eyes, and I just loved this book. It was so good. And I know you call this a novella because it is a smaller book, but
yes.
Since it's the lead-in to the series, I guess it's like to introduce the characters. Is that what you would say?
Yes, it introduces how the club was formed, I guess, and then the reason behind, why the club was developed. And then the books in the series they're all individual stories that can be read, by themselves as standalone novels, or they can all be read as part of the series. And then the final book in the series reintroduces the initial characters from the first novella, Behind Blue Eyes, and that's Gray Cloudy Lies. So it kind of wraps everything up at the end to find out, what happened to the people who started the club.
It's crazy. I mean, even just reading this, this small 200, I shouldn't say, it's a 200-page book for the most part, but it is so good and so packed with everything that I was just like, I want to get your next one. I thought the next one was Gray Cloudy. That's what I was looking down. And this was released in 2017, correct?
Well, that's kind of a crazy story because I started writing the club series. The book that you read, Behind Blue Eyes, is a prequel novella. I actually started writing the club series in 2015, and book one, which is Black Dog Nights, is one of the first people, it's a story of one of the first clients, you could say, of the club series, of the club. And that was the first book that I wrote that I thought was going to be the beginning of the series. And then I continued over the next couple of years with the series, writing the rest of the books. And then I thought to myself, people might want to know about Claudia, who is the owner of the club, and how she even started the club. And that's where I got the idea to write the prequel novella, and that just came out. So I actually wrote the whole series and then wrote the final book and then wrote the prequel. So the prequel is the last thing that I wrote.
It's kind of like you got a Star Wars thing going.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So now I understand, like, my confusion when that comes out because I look under Goodreads. That's where I get a lot of and they'll say, brand new book coming out. And then, so that now I understand what my confusion was. I'm like, oh, it's the first one. Oh, awesome. I'll read the first one and then I can move along with it. But it's like when you're watching Star Wars, you want to get, you don't want to start with the one that was released in 76 anymore. You want to go,
exactly.
Figure out which one the first one is and then go from there.
Exactly. Right.
So.
Yeah. And Behind Blue Eyes takes place 20 years ago. So, it's like in the past. And then the rest of the series takes place today. And so by the time you get to book 6, which is the final book, which is actually the 7th book in the series, which is Gray Cloudy Lies, then that takes place in the present when Claudia, because Behind Blue Eyes, Claudia is in her 20s. And so by the time you get to the final book, which is in the present, she's in her 40s. So you find out, what finally happens to her.
Well, like I said, this book had me going, and it is so amazing. I can't wait because now since I've read the first one, now I want to go to the next one and find out what happened. But I love, like, when I'm reading a book like this, and I love to think about what the author's thinking in names, okay? And so, like, first page, I find out that the girl's name is Journey. And I was like, oh, my gosh, that is such an amazing name. How did she think of that? Like, I never thought of that as a name, but it's amazing.
I stole it. Be careful what you say to me. Be careful what you do around me because I steal everything from everyone. I actually work with a person. In my day job, I'm a professor at a university, so I actually knew someone at work that was named Journey, and I loved the name, so I decided to use it.
Yeah, and it's so unique, and I was like thinking to myself, well, she did the, it was originally by her, and then I'm like, oh, I'm sure there's somebody out there named Journey, it's just,
yes, there is.
But it's still like, I loved her name, Journey Rivera. Like, I just thought that flowed so nicely, and I love that it starts, it's Journey's story, but Claudia, it's kind of Claudia's story too, not to as much of an extent, but then I see as I'm reading the other books, like Claudia's story kind of takes off, So does Journey's story continue with the club series?
You're actually reintroduced to all of those characters from the first book in the final book. So they all reemerge in the final book, which is Great Cloudy Lies. But in between, like the other stories, are all individuals that actually work for the club and work for Claudia. So Claudia is the only character, and then her niece, who is also the main character of the final story. They're the only characters throughout that are consistent throughout the book because they own the club and run the club. And then each of the individual stories is about people that work for the club and are clients of the club. And they all are intermingled with each other, like they're friends with each other and roommates of each other and know each other, like across the hall kind of neighbor type thing. So like people interact with each other throughout this series that are, familiar to each other.
And do you have, I've talked to other series writers who have these like crazy fans who actually like kind of dictate where they're going with their story. Like, do you find that your fans will like comment and say, write more about this person, now write more about this person? Do they get like that connected?
Yes, they do it all the time. Yes. I didn't actually even think about writing in a series. Like when I first started writing romance novels, which was in 2012, I wrote my first 2 romance novels in 2012. And it never even dawned on me to write in a series. I'm not sure why. And then I had people writing to me and asking me what's happening with these characters, and they wanted to know more about the characters. And I thought, gee, I should be writing in series. So that's what gave me the idea to start writing in series. And then, of course, you from a financial perspective, you make a lot more money when you write in a series, and because people get connected to the characters. There are authors, out that are famous that, they're on book 20, 25 in some cases of these long series that have been going on for decades. So people do get attached to the series and they become like real people.
Right. I talked to this woman from Canada, she's an author, a couple of weeks ago, and she had like 5 series going at the same time. She had flow charts. She showed me her flow charts, and serious, crazy like writer. But she told me that every time she thinks she's done with a story, somebody's writing in and they give her They're like, no, you have to do this character now, and she's like, oh, I didn't even think of that character. Okay, I'll do that character.
Yeah, they do. Like I have a one of my other series is called the Back to Bookman series, and it's about people that are attending their 25th class reunion. I'm a middle-aged woman, and I want to read more. I don't always want to read about 20-year-olds, so I decided to write what I call a Love and Midlife series. And so this series has the potential. Right now, it's only 4 books, but it has the potential to go on indefinitely because there were 500 people that graduated in that class. So it could go on forever. But every one of the people that I write a book about went to Bookman College, during the 90s, and this is their 25th college reunion, and it's the story of what happens to them, when they come back for their reunion.
That's crazy, especially like in my mind, I just flashed the fact that, I'm part of my high school reunion. Well, I was kind of disbanded because we're all getting old, but I was a part of it. And Facebook, you don't realize how connected you are with those people like before, but now with Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and, you do become a part of their lives more than you would have known about their lives like, 10, 20 years ago. So I was just thinking that, you can keep going. You can keep going. They could all be connected in some way, So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what I do when I get a book when I got this book, which is why I knew so little about, is like I try not to read anything about the author or the other books. I try to just take the book and read it as a standalone and then kind of draw my own conclusions. And then I'm always really surprised when I start looking it up. And the one thing that I was surprised but then not surprised about you is that you're a screenwriter. Because when I was reading this, I was like, this is a movie. This is somebody who knows how to write screenplays. And you do. So I was like,
yeah,
I knew it.
Yes. Yeah, I do tend to write very succinctly, which is what you need to do when you're a screenwriter, and I definitely bring that into my novel writing. I don't, and it's a preference that I have as a reader too. Like I don't like flowery language, what they call purple prose. That's not me. I like to get to the point of what's happening in the story, which is why I tend to write shorter novels. And I really just want the action of what's happening between these characters and the drama and the conflict to be, there on the page, which is what you need in a movie as well. So yeah, I've definitely had a lot of training in screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that you said that it shows in the writing. Thank you.
It really does. Yeah, I was going to say that is a compliment because I read a lot of books that I can tell they're not using the story format. Like with yours, I could see the format. I could see the acts. I could see what was happening. And I like that. I think it is. I don't know if other people are, like readers that aren't that tuned into it, but because I read basically a book a day, I'm pretty tuned into what I'm looking for at a certain amount of pages in. And the fact that you wrapped up the story in a novella, that is not an easy thing to do. I mean, novelists don't really take on novellas very often because it is more difficult, but since you're a screenwriter, you could do it. You could actually do the novella,
Yeah. And I find myself, and I think this is probably true of other people too, I mean, we live in such a fast-paced society and things are happening so fast. I don't know if you do, but I find that like I have less patience for really long like epic novels. Like I want to read more shorter things, so that's what I tend to be writing more. And it's nice to have something short to read when like say you just want to go into the bathtub and have something quick to read. It's nice to have that that option of having a novella.
Yeah, I do. I mean, because I read so much, and because of what I do, anything over 350. Right away I'm like, okay, all right, I got to sit down now, and I'm going to have to, like I get a 350-page book, I can zoom through in a day, no problem, but as soon as we get to the 450, then I know I'm going to have to invest some time in it, and it's, it's not going to be a day book, and, I prefer day books. I prefer a book I can read in a day and just be, and get to the end and be like, when I got to the end of your book, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's what I love about it. Like I can sit down, I can read it, carry it with me throughout the day, wherever I am. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, and I lay down, I'm like, oh my God, that was so good. That was such a good book. The story was amazing. And, you wrapped it up so nicely, and I didn't see it coming. I didn't see the end coming at all, and I was just like, I love that. I love when I can't see it coming because I always think by halfway I know what's going to happen, and I did not. So we can't talk about it a lot, but I can tell you that I did not see it coming.
Oh, good. That's good. It's hard when you're writing a book to know if you're going to have a twist or if it's going to be something stupid, because I don't know, when you're watching a movie, a lot of times you'll be like, oh yeah, that twist is so predictable. And so when you're writing something, you don't know if it's going to be really a twist or if people are going to say, oh yeah, that was so predictable. Yeah, you don't know as a writer.
No, you got me. And let me tell you, at the point, and this is another thing from going to movies and reading screenplays and interviewing screenwriters, like, to me, there's that sweet spot that sends a shiver down your spine and that's exactly what happened at the exact right spot in your book. Like, good. I just sat back and was like, what? Like, she got me. Like, it was, I don't know, it's just that moment. That's why I was like, she's a screenwriter. I can just tell. She knew exactly when to hit with the twist, and it was great. It was amazing. So I am very excited to read the rest of them because, it's good that I think it's really good that I started with this, and I always like to do that. I always like to start with this. That's how I got it to begin with, So I will definitely be reading the next couple. But tell me, like, so as a screenwriter, now you have a screenplay that, is it out there, like, being made into anything, or?
Well, I have had a script option, but it didn't end up eventually getting made into a movie. And I actually sold the script to a production company, and they are working on getting it produced. I mean, it's hard, though, like, to get the funding for a movie. A book is so easy now to, quote, produce yourself, right? I mean, my husband and I, we own our own publishing company.
Right.
So we can get my books out fairly quickly, and we also publish 16 other authors. So, it's not difficult to publish a book, but making a movie is a much bigger undertaking. So, that's something that you need to have people funding for the most part, unless it's a very low budget type of a thing. You have to go out and get people to fund the movie, which is always difficult. So that's why there's a lot of books that get optioned that really don't get ever made into movies. Same thing with scripts. Like, a lot of scripts will get optioned or even sold and just don't end up getting made. Or maybe it takes years. I mean, you hear stories about passion projects and movies that producers worked for years, 10, 12, sometimes even 15 years to finally get the movie made and, off and running, so to speak.
Yeah, and even with the movie industry getting a little bit better with the Amazon and Netflix and, originals and everything, but I think you're right. I mean, writing a book is you can just do that. You can just sit down and write a book. I mean, and get it out there to Amazon, even if you don't have a publisher or agent or anything. You can do it on your own. You can't really do that with a screenplay. That's not possible.
Exactly.
You can't just, even though I love the
and as a writer, I don't have any, personally, I don't have any interest in producing movies, and I don't have any interest in directing movies. I'm not like a Quentin Tarantino or, a Kevin Smith or somebody that is a writer, director, producer kind of a thing. I have no interest in that. I'm a writer. I like to sit in my writing cave and, and make up stories. I have really no interest in, cinematography and stuff like that. So, it's harder because, when I started writing many years ago, I did a lot of playwriting. That and screenwriting are collaborative processes. You can't do anything with a play, and you can't do anything with a screenplay unless you have actors and a director and people that are willing to perform it, right? So it's a much different process. It's a collaborative process where writing a novel is just you. Right, exactly.
And, I was interviewing the woman who wrote Pay It Forward that actually ended up becoming a movie, and then she wrote like 40 books after that, okay? And she said that having done that, and she's like, I know people aren't going to understand this, but I don't need to do it again. I like to just write my books. I don't want them, she was like, it was out of her hands then. It got bought and it got changed and it got, she said as cool as it was at the time, she said she really doesn't have to yearn for that anymore. She just likes to sit and write, and I can understand that as an author because the movie business can get so difficult sometimes, even though her
you do lose control of your creative property. Like, once you sign the contract, that's it. You have no say and no control over what they do. I mean, they can use the title and completely change everything else. I was listening to an interview with James Patterson, and he was basically saying the same thing. And you're talking about a huge, multi-billion-dollar author, and he said once he signed his name, he had no control. He didn't even recognize what they did to his story. It was like completely different.
Did you hear that on his master class?
Yes. Yeah.
Me too. I heard that too, and I was like, but you're James Patterson. How is that possible?
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You could be Stephen King, James Patterson. It doesn't matter. Once you sign the paper, you're done.
Yeah, he said he showed up on set and didn't recognize the characters, and they had to explain them to him.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't that master class very good? It's really, really good.
It's really, really good. And I'm like, you know, the reason I started doing this, I'm like a writer wannabe. And when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with I raised 6 children, and I was like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I was like, you know what? I read all the time. I homeschooled my kids. I read all the time, and I always wanted to talk to authors. And then, you know, with the Oprah show and her interviewing authors, I was like, that's what I want to do. I don't have to write the books. I can read the books and then talk to the authors. And so that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I love talking to you guys, you know, because I've done all those screenwriting classes and writing classes. I've done all of that and read all the books, but I don't have the story. I don't have the one to sit down and write, but I love talking to authors and I love reading your books. So it works, you know?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, when you started your publishing company, was it like, were you writing your books and then decided that would be a great way to be able to publish them? Or had you tried like the Amazon, you know, put them up there and see if you could self-publish?
Well, it kind of, everything happened very quickly because it was just at that right time when the indie publishing craze, if you will, was just taking off. It was like I was just getting into writing romance novels just at that time when, like, I don't know if you read like Colleen Hoover and, you know, the new adult type books were all coming out. And it was just madness. Like, people were gobbling up books as fast as you could put them online. People were just gobbling them up. And I was just writing like crazy and just publishing books like crazy because people were buying them like crazy. Things are completely different now. I mean, the market is completely different now. But back then in 2013, you really couldn't write books fast enough to satisfy the market because there weren't as many people writing them. It was just taking off. So, you know, I was fortunate that it was just that right timing that I just happened to be writing romance that, you know, was very marketable and people were buying it. So I just kept writing and having them buy it.
That's right. And then you get to publish other authors too. So that's awesome because, you know, the authors, I find that they're so stuck between the publishing world and the self-publishing world. And that's why now we have hybrid, which, you know, helps them out a little bit, and they don't need an agent and all that crazy stuff. But it is a crazy time of the authors trying to figure out what the best way to go is, you know, whether they want to just keep writing and putting them up or, you know, getting the best representation for their book out there so that more people will be able to read them, you know.
The issue that I have with traditional publishing or the traditional publishing model as it is right now is that it's very slow. And I can tell you're from the East Coast by your accent, and I am too. So we're not slow people. Like, we want to have things happen fast, right? That's the way we were raised. And I just can't, I don't have the patience for, okay, you send a query to an agent, and it takes the agent 3 or 4 months to get back to you to say they want to read the manuscript, and then it's another 3 months before they read the manuscript. Then if they decide they like it, that 6 months have gone by, then they decide they want to represent it, and so then they have to sell it, and so that's another 6 months that's gone by. So now you're talking a year, right, and you still don't have a book out. And then, you know, then if they eventually sell it, it may be 2 years before the traditional publisher gets it out. So you're talking about a 3-year time period to get one book out, where in 3 years I put out 40 books. You know, I can't wait around.
Right.
Yeah, I can't wait around for that.
The guy I was interviewing this morning, he said that, you know, and he only wrote one. He's retired, right? He wrote one book. And he said that he was like, okay, I'm going to go to a publishing company. And he waited like 6 months, and they're like, okay, can you send us the first 10 pages? Like, after he sent them like the synopsis, he thought they were already saying no. He was like, I was moving on. I just kept writing other stuff. And then he just said no, because he'd already put, you know, he was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not waiting 6 months. And then how long will it take you to read the first 10 pages? You know, how long is that going to take? So,
yeah. Yeah, it's very slow. Yeah, it's very slow. And you know, and some people don't want, when you independently publish, you are a business person too, and some people don't want that hassle, which I completely understand, because it takes a tremendous amount of time and effort to do all those other things that go with publishing and marketing work. I mean, that's a whole nother basically full-time job on top of writing. Like, you want to spend most of us who are writers want to spend our time writing, not owning a business, not having to deal with taxes and all this other stuff that you have to do when you own a business. So I totally get that. But the thing for me is the timing. I just can't wait that long for somebody to say they want to represent my manuscript, like 6 months. That's too long for me to wait.
And that's what, I mean, your fans don't want you to do that either. Like, they're not going to wait, you know, they don't want to wait around 2 years to get another book. Like,
Exactly.
You know, I'm sure you've noticed, like, especially for series writers like yourself, every time you get a book out, like, they're waiting on it. You know, they're like, okay, when is the book coming out? Okay, you know, I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready to read the next one. Like we are with Netflix and Amazon. Like, we want to read everything. We want to read everything you've written, you know? That's
right. People want to binge. Yeah, because they get in the habit. You're exactly right. They get in the habit from Netflix and you know, those subscription companies. They get in the habit of being able to sit on a whole entire weekend and watch the whole series. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. Once you like something, you want to see all of it at once. Well, the same thing is true with reading a series. It's like, once you like it, you don't want to wait 2 years, 4 years, whatever, for the next book.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you too about your pen names, because I found that really interesting. Like, you write underneath when you wrote, you know, it's like your name and then writing as. Like, what is what is that?
Well, okay, when I first, this is kind of a long story, but when I first started writing, prior to 2012, I was doing screenwriting, and then I decided I wanted to write some children's books. So I wrote some children's books and published them, and that's when our publishing company started. And we were initially doing more like children and young adult type stuff. And so in 2012, when I decided I wanted to venture out into romance, I didn't think it was going to be appropriate, since I already built a fan base of kids that liked my books. I didn't want them to get confused and accidentally buy something that had explicit content.
Oh, right.
Right? So that was my initial motivation for wanting to write under a pen name. And so it got out of hand, though, because then I wanted to experiment with different types of books, and I started writing under different pen names. So I ended up at the end of all of this with 4 different pen names, because I was writing 4 different, like, heat levels and different types of romance. So it was out of control with 4 pen names. And I was having different fan bases, and I was like, you got to read this book, but that's a totally different person. No, it really is me. You know, like, my Dakota Madison people and my Savannah Young people were different fan bases, and I was like, but I'm the same person, you know. It was just crazy. And then something even crazier happened last fall, in 2016, fall of 2016. There's these people on Amazon that steal pen names, and one of the Amazon scammers stole my most popular pen name, and it was Savannah Young, and that was the pen name that I had sold over 100,000 books. And it was horrible, because people were thinking that Savannah Young was writing these books that he was putting out, and they were just garbage. They were junk, and they were all like 1-star reviews, but he used the same font as my pen name. He used similar covers to make it look like I was writing the books. And Amazon basically said there's nothing we can do about it. I would have to take him to court for trademark infringement. And I didn't have the money to do that. There are other authors, more famous authors than me, that have taken scammers like that to court for trademark infringement, and they've won. But it cost them quite a lot, like tens of thousands of dollars, and I didn't have that kind of money to invest in it, and I said, forget it. I was tired of having four pen names anyway, so I republished everything under my own name. So that's why you see on Amazon it has my name and then writing as whatever my pen name. So all my new books, I made the decision. So in the fall of 2016, last fall, up until January, I've been trying to finish off all my series of all my old pen names. And then starting this year in 2017, all my new books will be just under my name.
Mm.
And then I'm continuing as just my name.
That's awesome. And you know what? That makes sense because this morning when I went on to look for another author that I was doing an interview with, and when I called him, I said, did you know that as on Amazon, you're a completely different person with your book? And he was like, no. I'm like, you need to go on Amazon. And I couldn't figure it out. He's like, that is the weirdest thing. And I'm like, it's a different picture. It's a different biography, but it had his book. It was weird. I don't know. So
there's crazy stuff going on there's crazy stuff going on Amazon, and scammers will do anything to make money. And the interesting thing, once I republished all my Savannah Young books as myself, Karen M. Bryson, the scam books completely disappeared. The ones that he had tried to make people think it was Savannah Young, they all just disappeared. And I'm sure he just republished them then under another author's name.
Well, I want to tell everybody who's listening, like, I am not a big Amazon person. Of course, I buy my books from Amazon, but I do not do their reviews or anything else very much on there since I found out there was so much paid stuff going on. But I found your book on Goodreads, and Goodreads has this section where there'll be like upcoming great, new releases of, and their recommendations. And it has not, like, every single book that I get from there is absolutely amazing. And that's where I found your book. And it's almost like I really trust them instead of going that, Amazon has their stars and their, all that stuff. Like I said, their reviews, and then you find out that they're paid or whatever. And Goodreads is like, I'm not on any of their other reviews. I do think they do have other stuff. But as far as, I don't even know if you knew, like, maybe they contact you about, like, your books being put up as a book of the month under a new release. But that's where I go under, and that's where I found your book. So.
Oh, thank you. No, I don't go on Goodreads, so I didn't know that, but thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, other authors have said the same thing. They're like, I didn't even know I was on. But for some, they're getting them. I don't know how. I don't know how they get their, or, recommendations maybe from people. I have no idea. But anyway, so it's a great place to look for books because, like I said, I've never gotten a book off of that list and it be a bad book, so whatever their deal is, like, they're trying to figure it out, I guess, how to compete.
That's interesting.
Yeah, how to compete with Amazon. So anyway, so it was funny when you said that I could tell you're from the East Coast because I saw that you were born in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I thought that was, when I saw that, I was like, oh, she's an East Coast girl. Okay, I get that.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, so my Bookman College series, the Back to Bookman series, takes place in a small town in New Jersey that I made up called Bookman, New Jersey. And I also have my Old Town Country Romance series, which takes place in Old Town, New Jersey, which is also made up. So I made up two small towns in New Jersey for two different series. So you may want to check those out, too, if you're interested. I don't know where in Pennsylvania you were from, but I'm from a small town, Newton, New Jersey. And it's just so ingrained in my personality, that mix of being from a small town like that, but also being so close to, like, New York, It's such a weird dichotomy that I don't think a lot of people understand what it's like living in that type of environment.
Are you close? Are you from northern New Jersey?
Northern New Jersey, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm right on the other side of Phillipsburg, so, like, I'm right on the border. I live in Allentown, and it's right there.
Oh, okay.
But, living in Allentown, it's like I'm always between Philly and New York, so I do get that. Yep. It's like a small town, but when people say, where are you from, I'm like, Allentown, and they're like, nah, I'm like, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So, are you still living there?
No, I live in Arizona, a place called Florence, Arizona, which is outside of Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the weather is much nicer here.
Yes. Yes, as you can tell, my allergies are already like kicking up today. Like now I'm into allergy season. It's like one nice day in Pennsylvania and you're kicked right into hay fever and allergy
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Arizona was always, I used to go there. I used to go to Phoenix a lot, and I would get off the plane and be like, oh, I can breathe. This air's so nice and clean. It's so awesome.
Yes.
So, do you do any book tours?
I do virtual book tours, but like flying around doing book signings, I don't really do that very much.
Well, virtual book tours are good too. I was just looking wanted to see on your main page, so I can direct people, to you where they can find out, everything about you. I think that the virtual book tours are definitely taking over though, as opposed to people traveling around the country. Don't you think? It's way more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You can be out
unless
there.
Unless you're a really huge name, like Stephen King or like I went to see Stephanie Meyer when she did a book tour
Twilight.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, she's from here, and she just put out a new book that's like an adult suspense thriller. And so I went to hear her speak, and she did a signing, and there were several thousand people there. It was a really good turnout. So unless you're at that level, where you're a really big name, you're not going to probably draw a lot of people to come out and have you sign their books.
Right. Exactly. No, I think it's perfect. I think the virtual, there's a lot of groups on Facebook that a couple of authors will get together and do virtual, book tours of all their books, and why not? That's so available to you guys. I think that's awesome, especially for your publishing company too. Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you so much, Karen. It was so much fun talking to you. I learned so much, and I want to tell everybody. The club series, if you want to start with it, you should start with Behind Blue Eyes, because that's number one, and and then go from there. And I love the cover. Oh, that was something else. I picked it up, and I'm like, I didn't tell you how much I love this cover. It's so cool. It's very cool. I love cover. Reader. I'm a book person. I don't get much on Kindle unless I'm traveling, but I usually then still order the book just to see the cover. So when I got this book, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, I recovered that series when I changed the pen name to myself as the primary author, and we redid the covers. But you can thank my husband. He's the cover designer, and he does all of our covers. Really?
Oh, that's amazing, because I'm looking through these covers. Yeah, they're all so cool. I love them. Thank you. So anyway, but you can find you where? Facebook, Twitter, all the... Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, the normal, so I'm normal hangouts, yeah. I will put all those links at the bottom of this video so anybody can click on it. And, of course, your website so they can go on there, and your Amazon page so they can order the book. So anyway, thank you so much, and keep writing so we can keep reading.